Only 15% of Australian small and medium businesses currently have a cyber insurance policy. On today's episode of It's Unplugged, I was joined by Andrew Brett, the Director of InfoSure Insurance. We discussed the common misconceptions and traps to avoid, key factors when reviewing policies. We also shared some real-life examples and if and how businesses can bounce back from a cyber incident. I really hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did. Now let's dive into it. Look, I'll just get into it straight away. Why do businesses even need cyber insurance? And, what's the current uptake of cyber insurance for small, medium businesses in Australia currently?
So I would put it, the major reason a business should have cyber insurance is the same premise as any other type of insurance they carry. So if you look at a traditional property policy, when you have something happen to your property, you need professionals to come in and rectify that or bring you back to where you were before. And just sort of like everything, those professionals, they were not free, but they also have specialist expertise where they do this every day. So they're usually panelists, members of insurance companies that this isn't a once-off event for them. This is what they do every single day. And they come in just like we all do in whatever profession we choose. And this is just a normal day for them. It's not a normal day for you, but it's a normal day for them. So the major thing I've been bringing up with companies, and as we move into this, more awareness around having a cyber incident plan. So we're moving into the territory or the realm of business ownership in 2024 where people are saying, well, you're going to need to have a plan or what's called an incident response plan. So you need to understand that, you may have a cyber incident and you actually need to know what you're going to do. As much as it's not a nice conversation, it's a lot easier to sort of give it the old, she'll be right, the Australian way. But I'm pushing back on those incident response plans and saying you need to have a separate column for what are these things going to cost. If it's a live incident, you might need a white hat hacker, which by layman's terms is just an ethical hacker who's hacking on your behalf. And that might be to defend against the live hack, or in some cases to re-hack the hacker if you get a really good one and start, getting on the front foot. But if it's been a hit and run, they're already gone, they've done it, it becomes a digital crime scene. So then we move into, you need a digital forensics analysis to go in and actually, like a true physical detective wouldn't go in and look at the crime scene and work out, right, well, this is what's happened. I'm going to make my report because you've had a crime. So again, that's the first two things I would suggest you're going to need, whether you have cyber insurance or not. So don't get me wrong, you're going to need these anyway. I'm just saying to you that these guys could be, or girls could be $400 to $500 an hour. And they are true professionals, true specialists, and they do, quite fairly, like everyone in life that's studied and gotten a skill, they will charge you for their time. And they are in high demand. I know people don't want to talk about it, but there's a lot of cyber incidents going on in Australia, and they are not sitting on the couch waiting for a phone call. So they're not going to drop their prices for you if you tell them, I didn't know it was this expensive. They have the skills, you need them. And so we start, if we use the insurance or the incident response plan and we attribute it to insurance, as in what insurance can pay for, you start calculating those costs, and you very quickly, or businesses very quickly, like most insurance, look at the costs versus the premium they're going to pay and go, right, well, is this of value to our business? Now, to answer the second half of that question, at the moment, SME business in Australia, less than 15% take out cyber insurance. So you have an 85% gap of businesses that currently do not have any financial assistance. And that's what I put it down to, for the financial assistance. So you can speak to anyone and get those services. So you could go out, but the one thing that none of these services, and you, unless you've got it, can produce the capital or the financial assistance to pay for them. And that is any type of insurance, whether it's property, motor, vehicle, that we're all aware of. You're trading a bit of premium for a promise to pay.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the incident response plan, and having like more of a holistic sort of approach to this. So where would you actually see the insurance part fitting into that incident response plan? Would that be like purely reactive, and is it to actually pay for these sort of like, deep forensic or, incident response people, these, high level specialists? Is that kind of where it's at, or is it is there any sort of like proactive element towards it as well?
So again, this will come down to who you partner with, so which insurer you partner with, and it'll come down to putting it bluntly, the insurance professional you choose to engage and how many specialists they know. So there's some cyber insurance policies that it's literally just a sort of a transactional. There's your piece of paper, and we'll come to you if you need anything from us. All the way up to the insurance partners at the other end, which will they actively throughout the policy period will assist you with either education content. They can do vulnerability scans to advise you. Okay, so we've picked up something in our ecosystem. We want to let you or your MSP know that this is out there. They're actively, and it may sound counterintuitive, but it's not, because you really don't want to have a cyber incident. They are, even though they've given you that promise to pay for the incident, they're really actively trying to stop you from having one in the first place. So whilst they are never going to replace your MSP or your need for a cybersecurity team, depending on your size of your company, they are trying to sort of provide that additional layer of assistance, or they're getting more involved and essentially waiting for you to call them.
Yeah. Okay. So like on that, like, are you seeing a difference in risk profile between different sectors? Like, say, for example, medical versus your typical professional services, and how insurance treats that?
Yeah, so there's a few things to look at. I mean, some professions in Australia or in anywhere in the world really are more regulated than others. They have a lot more stringent parameters in how they can operate and what, essentially what they do, how they conduct their business, what they touch, what they choose to engage in. So I'll be completely honest. The average InfoSure client at the moment is probably a lawyer or an accountant. We have health and medical professionals. These probably businesses tend to understand more, and that's around just, I guess, they're more aware of their requirements or commitments to what they do as a business, and then are probably more around, when I go and talk to a business, we really need to build a blueprint of A, how much technology you rely on every day, and B, how big would taking away that technology be? So if you look at one incident, which would be a DDoS, or for those out there, it's distributed denial of service attack, and that's just me essentially flooding your traffic or flooding your computer system so much so that you yourself can't get into it. So it's a very effective way for me to shut down. Say if your whole staff, right? Your whole staff use one CRM, or they use one piece of software, and then all of a sudden they can't use it anymore. You really need to look at it and go, right, well, either you'll find out really quickly, okay, then we have 60% of our business runs on, I guess you talk about attack surfaces. These are 60% of our business could be taken away tomorrow. And you might have someone on the end of the line that's going, well, until you give me $1 million through Bitcoin or through this, what I'm asking for, you're not getting that back. But that goes, we'll probably touch on it, goes into also with cyber insurance is, that's one of those instances I was talking about at the start where you would need a white hat hacker, you'd need an ethical hacker to come in and start going, right, well, let's go. I'm now going to try and hack the hacker and stop this DDoS. And that might be the portion of your claim, is just to pay for that team, and it might need 3 ethical hackers. You don't know the other thing is you don't know what you don't know. So we don't know what the actual attack's going to require until someone has triaged it, assessed it, and gone, right, this is what we're going to need.
Yeah, so like some type of remediation services or whatever. So yeah, it could involve many people across many different teams. Yeah, I wanted to go back just quickly, just around that 15% uptake in cyber insurance, and like that is a massive gap in the SMB market in terms of customers that don't have insurance, cyber insurance. To me, that's quite surprising. I thought it would be a lot higher than that. What are you seeing as the main sort of obstacle or hurdle as to why these businesses aren't either prioritizing it or seeing it as a necessity?
Yeah, so first of all, I can validate you there. So there was a recent parliamentary inquiry around cyber that actually included one conversation around cyber insurance, and they were also shocked at the uptake. The person involved in that particular parliamentary inquiry used the number around 10 to 12%. So I use 15. I'll round it up. Happy to do that. But there's a few answers to that, I believe. The attitude in Australia, and I'll be completely blunt, around cybersecurity is also not that high. You just take the Medicare details that come out and said they're spending 10 cents per customer on cybersecurity.
And they didn't even have any insurance. So, they cancelled their insurance. So that says it all, doesn't it?
Correct. And you're looking at, someone put it perfectly. They said, when you're spending 0.14% of the revenue you take off a customer to protect their data that they have given you and paid for, that reveals the whole problem with cybersecurity, is that no one is reinvesting to protect. And the saddest part is, okay, so they said they spent 10 cents per customer. If they had a little thing in your tick box on your invoice of, let's say it's, I know what mine is, it's in the hundreds of dollars, could be in the thousands. If you had a little tick box that said, hey, for an extra $1, we will up we'll up the whole cybersecurity spend by 10 times. Most would tick it. But that's sad. Why should we have to pay more? But we would. So it's not, I find them interesting, those ones, because, they're good for public exposure, but your average SME business goes, well, that's not me. No one's going to target me. But the majority of cyber incidents in Australia are SME business, which makes that 15% even scary.
Yeah.
Now, let's go back to why I don't think they're purchasing. That's another, I'm pretty passionate on this one, because I'm not coming from the point of someone who owns a business trying to just wave my little flag around and say that I think everyone else is doing it wrong, so you come to me. I was in general insurance for 8 years. Every single day I did what I'm talking about. Now, I could do anything between 5 to 7 different policies for a business. You look at your traditional property liability, management liability, professional indemnity, commercial motor, then you might do their personal homes, their personal cars. We talk about time. I only do cyber insurance now. That's all I do all day, right? And I still can't keep up with what I need to know. So I look at what I did for 8 years. I never touched cyber insurance for 8 years. If I had a conversation with a client, it was very shallow, very, and again, this is going on what I've learned now. It's very sort of like, there's this new thing called cyber insurance. What does it cover? It covers hacks, pays ransoms. That's about the depth of the conversation I have. Now, we've also got a situation where I'm dealing with 5 to 7 other of their policies. So whether I even get time to bring up cyber insurance, because they're asking me to make midterm endorsements. We bought a new car, we bought a new building, we've made a change. So I'm actually already extremely time poor. And you can look this up. Very rarely will a general insurance broker in Australia have a specialist cyber insurance broker in there within their brokerage, or someone that is just focusing on cyber insurance. So you sort of have a situation where everyone's doing the general stuff, and it's sort of onus is on everyone. Well, if you want to go learn cyber, go learn it. So the bit that I'm passionate on is I genuinely don't think the 85% of people that don't have cyber insurance are making educated decisions, or making, I guess, to not be so blunt, informed decisions. They're not getting the information going, right, well, that has absolutely no value to my business, so I'm going to pass on that one. I just don't think they understand what's available. And, I don't want to talk about sort of what shocked me, but in general insurance, we might have had a 15, 20% new business strike rate. Well, I'm operating over 60%. It's around 67. So the data is telling me I'm 3 times more successful than I was when I was in general insurance. And that is purely because most of my conversations are educational. I don't come in and start, tearing apart an existing policy. I don't come in and start sort of looking for cracks in an original broker's program that's already in place. My biggest competitor, in fact, in the last year of owning InfoSure, is non-purchase. My biggest competitor is that they just don't purchase anything. And the educational piece I've been following is purely because I'll just explain to them the options. This is what you get in the policy. This is the kind of exposure you're going to have. These are the kind of, and I'll use the word clarity, because when you have a cyber insurance policy, you really have an incident response plan on retainer. So we talk about, having these services. And I said before, they're not sitting on the couch waiting for you. If you don't have them on retainer, or you haven't engaged them, if you're cold calling a lot of these services, you're going to struggle to get them, because they're so busy that they're like, if you get one and also then, I compare cyber insurance to a missing persons case. The first 24 hours is crucial. So if you're spending the first hour or two just trying to find someone to help you, you're losing time. And so I talk about the importance of having to have it already there. Even if you don't want to buy a cyber insurance policy, that's fine. It's your prerogative. You literally should be having all these services on retainer, or at least have it in relationship with them already, because you're going to need them. And I think we're past the point of head in the sand. It'll never happen to us. And if we're not, then that's another conversation. But what I'm saying, and I'm an advocate for MSP cybersecurity relationships existing, is you already need to be having these conversations, regardless of whether you call me. You already should be planning for a cyber incident. It's just when you talk to me, I'm going to say, right, well, you're going to get these services on retainer because the insurance company uses them every day. So they're already your priority. Your priority of someone who doesn't have insurance, but then also they're going to pick up the tab on them because that's part of the promise. And as long as you get the right insurance policy, I will say that,
yep.
You do have to get the right carrier.
Yep.
You are going to get, the process is going to look like as soon as you call that number, which is they run 24/7. They operate on a follow the sun approach. So they have offices so that you get someone fresh. You don't get someone at 2 a.m. in the morning. So they usually run one in Australia, one in Europe, one in America. So whatever time you call them, they've got someone fresh. It's 10 a.m. there. They're fresh as. They've had their morning coffee. They're ready to go. And then if it goes to their close-off time, they can move you to the next country, which it's not getting passed around. They all know the notes. They're all very highly organised because of the area they work in. You're getting passed through on a 24/7 basis. Now, again, going back to my original point, I don't know how long it's going to take you to find those services or get those services to help you.
Yeah.
Because they're going to go, no,
you'll be scrambling. Yeah, exactly.
You're absolutely scrambling.
You'll be absolutely scrambling, yeah.
To make an analogy of it, you're not scrambling in a beautiful air-conditioned office. You're scrambling in the ring with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
You're getting beat up.
Yeah. Because
every phone's calling, the computers are flashing. Just remember, your employees too now are going to go, what the hell's going on? I don't have any access to my system. I have work. Your clients are calling, hey, mate, I asked you for this 3 hours ago. You haven't sent it through to me. Also, I'm emailing you email, bouncing back saying I can't get through. So all these things are going on. And if you don't believe me, there's a guy who does simulated cyber incident attacks. He said, look, 5-10 years ago, everything I did was terrorism. So he does a simulation. He gets actors. He goes, now majority of my work is cyber incidents. And he goes, the average CEO taps out in 3 hours.
Yeah.
They are. And I say tap out like they are going sweating. I can't handle the stress anymore. Like it's too stressful.
Yeah.
They simulate everything. And so I guess when you go back to that, why aren't people purchasing? I just don't think they understand. Yeah. They're not being told what's going to happen.
So it's an education piece, really.
It's a complete education piece, Adam. It is. I'm not going around saying, free steak knives with every cyber insurance policy. I don't even need to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because once I explain to you what the incident's going to look like, also explain to you that even if you don't purchase a cyber insurance policy, you need to go get these services anyway. Yeah. You need to make sure. And if you don't, then you're going to have a very bad time. Yeah. I'm not going to use scare tactics of you'll go insolvent because I don't need to. Like you may or you may not. There's no point in me inducing fear for no reason. I'm just explaining to people how you need to respond to these incidents and how it is going to be hard. And if you don't think it's hard, go call a lawyer right now. Go find a digital forensics company and call them up and say, hey, if I needed to get you to come out or start working on my account within half an hour. I mean, in cyber insurance, you should usually be triaged in 5 minutes. Yeah. So, it's again, I'm not trying to create hysteria. I'm not trying to
look, I have very similar thoughts and experiences to you. Where I'm seeing a lot is, businesses are just blindly piggybacking off their existing insurance, whether it's their general business and that, like we're seeing the forms come through. It's the same insurers, what they've got their business, PI, PL, all those types of stuff. So I'm yet to see some, apart from yourself and a couple others, I'm yet to see some very specialist cyber. But I did want to ask you, on the topic of promises and policies and the right policy, what should they actually be looking out for in terms of the policy? Like, is there stuff in there that policies aren't covering?
So I'll give you a very, very good example. I think this will just sum it up perfectly. So of the 15% that have a cyber insurance policy, I've had a few come across my desk, and one of them. So what will happen is cyber insurance, first of all, is not like any other liability. It's a bit like private professional indemnity. But if you look at a traditional public liability, it'll say $20 million, or should, any one event. And that means that if you have 6 claims in your policy period, you get $20 million each time. Cyber insurance policies are set up as an aggregate, what's called an aggregate limit. So that means you get one bucket. Whatever limit you place, you have 5 incidents during the year, you get the same bucket. It also means the majority of the time all your services come out of the same bucket. Now I'm going to use this word, it's the big sexy number. That's a big beautiful number that every policy is going to go, that's your number. Then you've got a thing called sublimits, which isn't that foreign. It's in most insurance policies, but they're the ones in cyber that I don't think, given the premise of the insurance, and I'll use this analogy. No matter who you are in Australia, you know what a building is, you know what a car is, you know what the premise of legal liability is. But how many people in Australia can talk in IT language?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you that's about, 5 to 10% max.
Yeah.
So you're already on the back foot. You're already dealing with a product that, even if you, like Adam, you could go talk about something about property insurance because you know the premise of a fire, you know the premise of, property damage. It's pretty simple. But if I went to a standard business owner, if someone said, okay, well, we're going to have to talk about, IT language. Oh, geez, it's up there with public speaking. Most people just
oh yeah, they do that, or
yeah.
they refer it back to organisations like us, where they go, hey, MSP, please help. Like, what do we put for this? And I think where I'm seeing those policies, and I definitely have seen the global, the overall figure, aggregate figure, and then the sublimits. And for some of the sublimits that I've seen, a lot of them are quite actually small for things like, data breach and around that sensitive and personally identifiable information. And there's a lot of grey area in the wording of these policies. And to be honest, you almost need to be a lawyer to decipher what is actually covered and what's not covered. It's very confusing.
You're not far off there, because an insurance policy, most people maybe respect that. It's a legal document. It is a contract. I say to people, once you have a claim, that's the contract you've got. That's the one you'd read. It doesn't matter if it's unfair. That's the one you entered into. Now, I'll give you 2 examples of what you just said about, or what I can tell you, maybe the listeners, about what to look out for. I got one on my desk the other day. It had a $3 million aggregate limit. You beauty. It's great.
Yep. Page
3, social engineering fraud sublimit. $25,000.
It's not going to go far.
With a $5,000 excess.
Wow. Okay.
Now, I guarantee you, and I didn't get this far because it was actually a broker that sent it to me and said, what do you think of this? And I said, well, I don't know if you've ever seen the biggest red flag in the world, but you've got one in your hand. I said, this is a client who I guarantee you thinks they have $3 million for a cyber claim. They are going to get a very rude shock when they get told that not even 25 grand, they have 20 grand for social engineering fraud. I can also tell you, because it wasn't his policy, so he was attacking it, and I'd speak to if general brokers want to speak to me, I don't have a problem, as long as they do it the right way. I'm happy to help. So I said to him, mate, I guarantee you that client has no idea they have 20 grand for social engineering fraud after excess.
Considering that's one of the biggest attack vectors, out there, the social engineering and stuff like that. So the fact that, out of that $3 million, dollar bucket, only 25,000 is.
And the scariest part was that was a brokerage placed policy. So that is not even a business that went direct to an insurer, and the onus should be on the business owner. That was through a brokerage. That's through an insurance broker who's taken the money. Let's be honest, they've taken the money to place the policy, and they have a $3 million promise with a $20,000 limit. And that is probably the one example. Let's leave that for a business to stew on. Is that just because you've got a policy, it doesn't mean you have coverage. It's the same as I guess in cybersecurity MSP land. Compliant does not mean covered, or compliant
does not equal security. Yeah, that's a mantra I stand by.
And it's the same in my world. Just because you've got a policy which only 15% do, doesn't mean you have coverage, because that contract will dictate, as you said, of your $3 million, you only get 20 grand for social engineering fraud, and that's where the attitudes maybe around the negativity of cyber insurance, because I think so many people in my world are transacting it and not advising on it, that there's a lot of bad policies out there. And a lot of the claims, don't get me wrong. The game of insurance, and that's why I exist, is the insurance company wants to take as much premium as they can and pay out as little coverage as they can.
Yep.
That's the game.
Yep.
Don't hate the player. Don't hate the game.
Yep.
So people employ me or any broker to play the game. They go, right, well, I'm trying to run my business. I sell grain and feed. I sell pool toys. You're the one that needs to help me out. And I just don't think that's happening in cyber, because they just, there's not enough awareness from both sides, the broking side and the business side, around what is right, what is wrong. But that's a great example. Look at your sublimits. Remember that your coverage limit at the top doesn't mean what sublimit or coverage you're going to get for that specific cover. And also remember that whatever coverage you take is what you're going to have to deal with in a claim and for the rest of that year. So the second one I'll say, and this is a little bit of a more of a non-obvious one, is a lot of insurers have different coverages when it comes to what they will and won't cover. Probably the biggest one I've seen is a lot of coverages, they limit a cyber incident to happening in your system, so the business system, or their cloud provider. Now, that excludes coverage if the cyber incident stemmed from your lawyer. So I hate to pick on them, but HWL, for example.
Yep.
There was a few people that had cyber incidents because they went through HWL systems and then went through all the way through to that business. And theoretically, that cyber incident, even though the company suffered from it, didn't stem from their system. That stemmed from their lawyer. Now, the coverage didn't cover it because it wasn't in their wording.
Is it just narrowed to the lawyer, or is it more of a supply chain?
No. Yeah, the lawyer is just one example. It's basically saying anything outside of your system or your cloud provider, any other service, your accountant, your lawyer, anything like that. If they have a cyber incident and they get through the back door through to your business, some of the policy wordings will say, well, no, it's not. What they'll say, you need to go sue that person. Now, I don't know about you, but if most people I know a lawyer would tell you, mate, that might take 6 to 12 months to even get in front of a justice system or get to progress that. So until that happens, you're still going to have to defend your cyber incident.
Yeah.
It's all good and well to say that, but what the other insurance companies are doing is saying, look, we'll take perfect example. Someone rear-ends you in a car accident. Even though you're not at fault, most of the time you pay your excess and your insurance company will sort it out. But then once that's done, they'll go recover from the other person and then they'll refund, it'll go off your claims history and you get your excess refunded. That's not to say that you're being helped out in that situation. Yeah, you pay the excess, but that's only because insurance company can't guarantee they can recover off the other person. They might not have insurance. They might have done they might not be in a position to do that. So they take the excess, but they still say, we'll give you the loan car, we'll fix your $50,000 car, we'll help you out. At least you don't have the stress. But then we'll go sue the insurance company will sue them in our time after. That's the big one inside it. I think a lot of people aren't seeing is that unless you have a coverage wording that will cover outside of first system or cloud, because cloud's obvious, that everyone's smartened up on that, and cloud's going to be included. But that sneaky, I guess, if it comes from your lawyer or accountant, if they come through the back door, well, it's not our incident. You got to go sue them. That's your problem. Lawyer up. It's not going to help the business. That could still. I don't want to be. Again, I don't fearmonger, but I had a really good analogy said to me. The difference between solvent and insolvent after a cyber incident could be the cyber insurance policy.
Yeah.
Because it may crush you. Not all businesses have $100,000, $200,000, even $50,000 cash reserves to put straight into a cyber incident.
Yeah.
Some businesses are running lean. They're running lean.
Yeah, and I think there's a stat. Yeah, there's a stat from the SME ombudsman that's I think 60% of businesses don't even recover after a cyber attack. So it'd be interesting to know, out of those 60% that don't come back, how many of them had cyber insurance? And I think it'd be
we know 15% of all SMEs don't have it. So
it'd be almost zero, I think. So
yeah, and there's other things to touch on with cyber insurance I don't think people understand is everyone in their property insurance has what's called business interruption.
Yep.
Or most do.
Yep.
But that is limited to tangible stuff. So it's like, right, so your fire, your flood, your property damage, right? Things like that. That is, and it used to be a bit ambiguous, but there was a case in America where an insurer got stung for hundreds of millions of dollars because they didn't wrap it up. All of those now have a cyber exclusion. It's basically saying anything to do with cyber, not this policy. So I think what I've sort of explained to businesses, you already understand the premise of business interruption. You've got it. You don't have cover for cyber. Now let's do a little calculation, work out how much of your business revenues derive from your cyber activity. How much of your business needs, if I did a DDoS, the distributed denial of service attack, and took down that CRM, if that's 60% of your revenues derived from that, however long I keep that thing, denied, you don't have any money coming in. So you might have 3 contracts worth $200,000 each. Well, you can't deliver them to the client. Client's, I'm not paying for them. You haven't done anything.
Yeah.
So now you're sitting there with someone's DDoS your software systems, and they're sitting there going, well, I want $1 million on 55 Bitcoin. So you've got that. You don't have the money coming in from the contracts. And then you've also got 10 to 15 employees going, excuse me, my mortgage is due. I want my money. Excuse me, it's payday. Hello. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I've got this try situation where I need to pay someone a lot of money, the hacker. I need to pay my employees, but I don't have any money coming in the door.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about cash reserves, how long don't even think about if you can do it once. What about if this thing lasts 2 or 3 months?
Yeah.
Can you withstand not having money coming in because you're not delivering a service to your clients and they're not going to pay you? Then you've got to pay your employees, or else you've got a real problem. And then you've got this person who is like, I've got time. I've got plenty of time. The hacker's like, I've got plenty of time, mate. I'm happy to keep your business down.
Yeah, well, the average dwell time too, within a customer's environment is, astronomical. Like they'll sit there and play the long game.
And this circles back to the educational piece. All you and I have done today, and I hope you have a lot of business owners that listen to this podcast, is we're just educating people.
Yep.
We're just letting them know what's out there and what could happen to them. And I think that is priceless in what's happening currently. I think a lot of them haven't got a clue, not to their fault, just because they don't have the advice or they don't have someone speaking to them.
Yeah, and I think the insurance game too has been a very closed field. And there's actually one question I really want to ask you about it, and I suspect I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. And that's like, if you had 2 very similar businesses, that came to you, wanting cyber insurance, and let's just say one had done, a lot of work on their cyber, like they'd partnered with a really good MSP or MSSP that aligned with a good framework, whether that be NIST, Essential 8, SMB 1001, whatever it is. And they came to you and they said, look, as part of our cyber strategy, we understand that we need cyber insurance, go out and get us some options. And then on the flip side, you say you have another company, similar industry, they've done nothing, but they've come to you, saying the same thing, but they've got no framework, they've got no strategy, they've done nothing, they're at a bare bones. Like, what does an insurer look out for? Like, do they take that into consideration?
100%.
Yeah.
So we're in a stage with insurance that's not just cyber at the moment. You speak to any insurance professional, we're in a hard market. So insurance companies are not as, think about it like this, Adam. It's like a nightclub. The security companies at the moment are acting like a bouncer. The club's almost full capacity. So they're very restrictive on who they let in. They've got a great people in the club. They're spending money. They've got the turnover. They already know who's in there. So we're in a market that there's hard markets and there's soft markets. Soft markets is when insurers are literally banging on your door going, come on, guys, come in, please. No one in the club. We're in a hard market. So we're already in a situation where insurance brokers' jobs, no matter what insurance you place, we need to package that insurance risk up for a client and sell the heck out of it to the insurance company and say, you really need this client. This is a really good client. So going to your example, if they have a client that's done nothing, I personally won't even work with them, and that is in the sense that I'll push them back into, say, their MSP or their cybersecurity, or I'll identify a few things. I'm like, either you're not listening to your MSP, which is usually the case, to be completely honest. And that's why I'm an MSP partner and a cybersecurity advocate, because they are so important to help me, because I'm trying to package a really good risk. And I'll say, you need to go back. And you know what? That's where your money should be spent. Or if they have like I said, a decent risk, then we'll actually, and this goes back to 2 things: what one insurance provider you choose to submit them to, and also what broker they're working with. Now, it works. It's like everything. If you can't understand what's good and bad, and again, this goes back to how many people can understand IT language. How do you present it to the insurer? So if I'm doing a business owner and they've got monitored CCTV and they've got monitored smoke, so monitored fire alarms going back to a fully automated office that as soon as it triggers, they call the fire engine. If I don't identify that or don't ask the question as insurance broker, and I tell the insurance company they just have non-monitored fire alarm, I saw something on the roof that looked like it was a fire alarm. I haven't asked the question. I haven't identified that it's monitored back to base, fully dialed. It's going to trigger the thing. The insurance company will give me a worse premium. So they can only go off what information that the insurance broker is packaged up and given to them. They don't go and check themselves. So I say the same thing. There's actually three levels to your answers. One, if you got nothing, I won't even work with you. And it's not even, I'm not being negative, I'm saying come back. It's almost like pushing back into MSP, cybersecurity, I'll come with you if you need, but this is the kind of stuff we need to do, minimum standards. Now, if you want to look at what those are, small examples, MFA across where an MFA needs to be. A lot of the time, if you have remote workers, remote access, you're dialing in, you're remoting into a server. If you don't have MFA on that, then you're not going to get past the first step. If you don't have an offline backup, so completely offline to your system, your network, you're probably also in a lot of trouble. Then the middle part is the people who are doing well and they might go to a general broker and the general broker, gets the MSP to fill out the prop. But apart from that, the general broker's like, I don't actually, there you go. Hands it to the insurance company. I actually don't. That's kind of what I've got. And then you've got the specialist who goes, right, they have this, they have Sentinel-1 or CrowdStrike, not WebRoot. And that's not saying, I'm just saying WebRoot's $2 a seat, Sentinel-1, CrowdStrike's $7. They have invested an extra $5 per seat for their environment. They've got BitLocker, they've got Duo push button MFA. You're now starting to really, you're putting some bows on
some tangible, some tangible
this
things.
This is a risk. You want to write Mr. Insurer or Mrs. Insurer. Like, this is exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, then now you're actually broken. Now you're advising. And now you're knuckling down. Whereas, that part I think is very, very rare in the Australian market. That's probably too high level even. We're not even at that point. Once we get to a 30-40% uptake of cyber insurance, we can start talking about the actual quality of that. Yeah. I think we're so far back here where most people don't even understand their options. Business owners don't understand their options in cyber insurance. And actually, if we want to talk, I can't tell you how much premium is going to be, but I'll give you an example. I wrote a finance company, pretty good practices. We bundled it up. They got $1 million worth of coverage, and they paid. Actually, they got $2 million. Yeah, that's the other thing I stress to people. The difference between $1 million and $2 million won't be as much premium as you think it is.
Yeah.
So we actually we started at one. I said, look, the extra two, I think it was like $600-700 for an extra $1 million. I said, look, even if you had $1 million and $10,000 claims, you're still $9,300 ahead. And that's the other thing. I'm not an audit taker. I will tell you. So they got $2 million aggregate limit, and I think they paid $4,000. That $4,500. So let's do the maths here. For them, I mean, what's that? Every 10 years they're paying $40 to $45,000. They've got $2 million promise. Now I will explain to them sublimits. So we go back to the social engineering fraud. They got a $250,000 supplement, but I will explain that. And that is not $20,000, but it's also not $2 million. You will not get $2 million social engineering fraud limit. It's just not the way it's going to work. But they get $250,000.
Yeah.
But I will ask them, like, is there any situation where you think that would affect you? Now, sometimes, and I'm not a magician, I can't push an insurer to do something they won't do. So we do have to play in the space we have.
Yeah.
But $250,000 is market leading.
Yeah.
That's not going to be, I won't because I'll get held up for this, but I could put my life on it. That broker who put out that $3 million policy with $20,000 supplement didn't even know that was a supplement. There's your $3 million. I'll take my commissions. You beauty. I'll have that conversation with them and say, look, this is market leading, so it is the best of the best. It's not, you're not going to get $2 million for social engineering fraud. Not going to happen. That's just.
But 250,000 is it's pretty respectable, especially from what I've seen in recent months. I've seen a lot less.
Yeah, and that's and that's the whole point is that even just that one supplement, if you look at the $4.5 premium, even just for that 250 grand,
Yeah.
right, let's take it down even a step there. What's that? 60 years of premium if you had one full 250 grand claim. So when I talk about value, because that's the other thing, I'm wary of time, but we're talking, it gets thrown around a lot. Oh, cyber insurance is too expensive. There's no value in it. No, there's no value in what you know of cyber insurance. What you know of what it does and the premium, guarantee you, I think there's no value in it either. But once you actually understand, and if you're partnering with the right insurer, I know I'm biased, but insurance, man, it's such an unfair exchange. Even look at your traditional property insurance. Most people do a $2 million building and they'll pay, $3 grand premium. Look at that promise. That's a promise, and if you've got the right policy, it is a promise. It's a legal binding contract. We're going to pay you about $2 million in a worst case scenario, and you only got $3 grand off it. But that goes back to the major problem with cyber insurance is when you have a 15% uptake. The premise of insurance is that everyone in Australia pays their premium, and whoever needs it at that one time gets their payout.
Yeah.
And that's how it works.
Yep.
We all put in a little so that someone in Australia who has a really bad day can get their payout. And the insurance company will hang around because they reinvest premiums for interest rate. They get money after investing all that money at the same time, like super fund, they're investing it, they're making money off it. But they've got so much pool of premium that they're willing to pay out you $1 million here, your $1 million there. As we know with the floods in Queensland and New South Wales hailstorms, they paid $10 billion out over the last decade, right? That's fine. But when you actually look at the issue of cyber insurance only having 15% premium pool, it means that insurers are more receptive to a claim because they're like, we don't have as much premium. They're pulling premium out of other lines. Oh shit, we've got to use our property premium. We've got to use all this premium to pay out these claims. So unless Australian businesses support each other, I'll get, it's cliche, but support each other. If you'll buy the policy, you'll all get the chance to claim on it if you need it.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's actually quite hard because the 15% that are doing it, are probably more susceptible to swings like higher premium increases one year. The insurers pulling back cover because they have such a minimum scarcity of premium from the premium they're getting that they're addressing in a different vision to property liability management because they've got so much premium in those pools.
Yeah.
So it really, biasedly, yeah, cool, I'm going to do more cyber insurance if businesses buy more policies, but it's like the whole ecosystem needs more premium. It really does. And that in a way, the Australian businesses need more education from us, people like InfoSure. And that's why I started InfoSure because, like I said, this is my 9th year in insurance. I've learned more about cyber insurance in the last year than I did in the whole 8 years before. I couldn't have educated a client on cyber insurance before at all. They would have, and you know what? To be honest with my workload, if they gave me a quick pushback and said, "Oh, no, it's not for us," I'd say it's fine. It's cool. It's fine because I don't even know what. I don't have a passionate enough case, and I think I'm not having a dig at general brokers. I know I'm provocative on LinkedIn. For anyone listening, go check me out, Andrew Brett. You'll see the way I conduct myself. I'm not having a dig at general brokers. I'm addressing the problem that's out in Australia at the moment. And if people don't want to accept that problem, then I'll keep pushing.
Yeah. So, okay, with all that said and done, just before we wrap up, new financial year, what do you see the next year looking like? Trends, predictions, floor's yours.
Yep. So I can already tell you the major one. There's a lot more business tenders or new business tenders requiring cyber insurance certificates.
Yep.
So traditionally, most business owners will understand that you have to give a public liability certificate when you do a contract with a new supplier. I am seeing a lot more lines underneath public liability saying we also want a cyber insurance certificate. So I wouldn't be surprised if more companies over the next 12 months come to me or whoever they use. And again, that opens up a whole new can of worms with, as I said, about what advice you're going to get. Is it's going to be taken out of their hands. They're going to need to get something in place before they can initiate a new contract.
Yeah. Are you seeing that just like government specifically, or is that in certain industries?
It's either, you're right, the person asking for the certificate is usually more mature.
Yep.
But your average 5 business, 2 million, 1 million, 500 grand turnover still might do a small section of government contract. They might provide some subcontracting services.
Yep.
So those, but I'm also seeing it like at a higher, at a higher, more mature, like ASX listed company, they do, they might only derive 40 or 50 grand of their whole revenue from that one contract. But that contract says, and it's still a valuable contract, it says you need to give us a cyber insurance certificate. And it's, to be quite frank, it's a test. The way I see it is it's that company testing and saying, well, because don't get me wrong, not everyone can get cyber insurance at the moment. As we said before, if you don't have minimum standards or you're not doing anything around your cyber insurance is not a band-aid for crap cybersecurity posture. And I'm very passionate on that. It's not to be used in that way. So it's a good way for a business to test and go, right, well, if you couldn't get cyber insurance, geez, you're a real risk to us.
Yep.
And they're using it in that way. It's the same sort of thing as public liability. If you don't pass an insurer's test, you don't pass ours. The second one, not as big as that, is I do think the government is now aware of the problem around cyber insurance. That parliamentary inquiry came out and basically, I've read it, and it said, they were like, wow, what do you mean it's 12% uptake? They were a bit like most things, no offense to the government, that they weren't over it. They just weren't. They weren't aware of how bad the problem was. And I think this was only about 4 or 5 months ago. They're now aware. They're very well aware that not many businesses are purchasing cyber insurance. And they're so far, with their 2023 to 2030 cybersecurity, they're very aware of how much change is going to happen in the cybersecurity landscape, that they're realising how important cyber insurance is going to be to that. Because like everything, you might have a fancy incident response plan, but if you're not aware of how you're going to pay for it, then you still got the same problem.
Yeah, exactly.
All
right, mate. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on It's Unplugged. Really appreciate your time and your insights.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.